Whole Health Core is a journey to a life well lived. It's an adventure. The Lewis and Clark expedition is the prototypical American adventure. Lewis and Clark launched out from St. Louis with a mission to explore and chart the vast American West. The West was then and would be for 100 years the open frontier, the space to be explored and settled. America today is a land of closed frontiers. There are no new spaces to explore or inhabit. Or are there? America today is a land increasingly motivated by stuff that only money can buy. Today's America is, in the words of Neil Postman, being amused to death. Here's a taste of Postman from his book, Amusing Ourselves to Death, Public Discourse in the Age of Show Business. When a population becomes distracted by trivia, when the cultural life is redefined as perpetual round of entertainments, when serious public conversation becomes a form of baby talk, when, in short, people become an audience and their public business is a vaudeville act, then the nation finds itself at risk. Culture death is a clear possibility. The new frontier is the life of the soul. It's the space where we meet the meaning of our lives and where we contemplate our life mission. Whole Health Core is a soul journey, exploring life from the inside out. Whole Health Core model guides the Whole Health Core journey. Whole Health model is built on a visual image where the self, the me, is at the center of the image. We begin with our inner lives. You alone are engaged in the Whole Health journey, but you don't do it alone. Whole Health Core is a team that seeks high-level wellness, that seeks healthy life together. The ring around the inner core of self is mindful awareness. Mindfulness has been an area of research in healthcare and other fields for over 40 years. Jon Kabat-Zinn is a pioneering researcher in mindfulness. His definition of mindfulness is this: mindfulness is paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. Some people would add, and with compassion, to that definition. Practices to cultivate mindfulness are not new. A variety of world and spiritual philosophical traditions address and have encouraged people to cultivate it for hundreds, if not thousands of years. A whole health course could easily be formed around the practices of mindfulness alone. In this training, we'll use mindful awareness practices to become increasingly aware of the thoughts and life practices that make us and keep us healthy. It's hard to imagine Lewis and Clark meditating as they explored their way west, but in fact, they were wide awake while they were exploring. Mindfulness leads us to an awakened mind that's able to see the wonder of our everyday lives. At this point, we will reveal a couple of videos on mindfulness in the VA.
Mindfulness is paying attention to the present moment, and it's paying attention in a particular way because we're paying attention in a friendly way, in a non-judgmental way. We're moving into the body and out of being on autopilot. So most of the time we're caught either in the past or in the future with our thoughts, and we're really missing what's going on in this moment.
A lot of people think, well, I'm paying attention all the time. I'm here in my life. But really, in this moment, a lot of us aren't right here. Where are we? right? We're either rehearsing the future in planning mind, thinking, what do I have to do next and next and next? Or maybe we're rehashing the past, thinking about what happened before and I should have said this instead of that. So between all the rehearsing and the rehashing, we forget that this moment right here is when we're alive.
Mindfulness is a pause button, so that you can just stop and be there and stop the mind chatter, stop the worry and the anxiety, or at least put it at bay.
So it's this very, it can feel actually pretty paradoxical what we're doing or what we ask people to do. And we have a saying that the fastest way in this practice to get from A to B is actually to be fully at A.
Mindfulness gives me a chance to kind of center myself and just think about one thing at a time and just allow my brain to take a moment to relax.
Mindfulness is not something that is foreign to us, so we all know how to do that, so we all know how to be present. It is just something that we are not trained to be in this place more often. So the training really helps us not to only be mindful for a moment, but to stay in that moment. Or when the mind wanders off, which is what it will do, of course, you just bring it back. And so the process of really learning mindfulness is to bring the mind back, but gently, and not judging yourself that the mind wanders off. This is just a normal thing that it will do. So in meditation or mindfulness practice, we have distinguished between formal and informal practice. So formal practice is when we take the time to just meditate, just to be in the present moment. And we can do that sitting, focusing on our breath. We can do that walking, feeling our feet. We can do that lying down, feeling into our entire body, but we're doing nothing else during that time. And then in informal practice, we are paying attention to what we are already doing, like we're drinking a cup of coffee, or we're petting the dog, or we are driving our car. So that would be informal practice. So we're using all of our senses to bring it to that activity in that moment and noticing what is really here compared to what I think is here.
So sometimes it's helpful to think about what mindfulness is not. Mindfulness is not a religion. What we're teaching here is a secular practice that can help people from all walks of life. And it's not an experience enhancer either. It's just the ability to be with our present moment experience just as we are with kindness. And through our mindfulness practice, we learn some essential things. We have this constant discrepancy analyzer, the way life should be, minus the way life actually is in our minds, equals how much our life sucks. And we're doing that constantly in each moment.
And when we can allow ourselves just to be present with whatever is here in this moment, we'll notice that this moment actually might not be so bad.
Some people coming to this practice have this sense that, oh, I should be feeling relaxed, or I should have a particular outcome with this. And that striving in and of itself is a barrier to doing the practice. We're falling a little bit into receptivity.
So it's very curious because we actually don't know what makes us being mindful. So I mean, if something happened, like there's a loud sound or something, then of course you're mindful. But then sometimes you just walk down the street and you notice suddenly your feet, or you notice the sun or the trees or whatever. Why we have that, we don't know. But what we do know is how we can get more of those moments, which is by practicing mindfulness. So that's another really good reason to have a regular mindfulness practice, let's say even like 10 minutes every day, and people really feel different throughout their entire day because it's easier for them to remember to be mindful.
Training veterans to pay attention to the present moment with kindness is a fantastic intervention across a number of diagnostic presentations for not just mental health patients, but for patients with a lot of physical suffering, for chronic ailments, and for chronic pain.
So I think using mindfulness at the VA can help in 3 ways. It helps the veterans. They can help themselves with the issues that they have, so they're not relying necessarily so much on a healthcare provider. Then we're helping the healthcare provider, so the clinician, to take better care of themselves because the rates of burnout and compassion fatigues are very high. And we're also helping the interaction of the two being together in the clinical setting, because what happens with compassion fatigue is that we're just not as engaged or attuned to the people that we work with as clinicians. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Veterans returning from conflict, most recently Iraq and Afghanistan, have had lots of physiological arousal, of course PTSD symptoms, hyperactive fight or flight.
Being able to pause or just focus on your breathing can give you enough space to make a different choice.
And of course, this is something that we can see. This is our experience as teachers of mindfulness, and this is something that our students feel immediately. They come into your classes and say, I was triggered by something and I didn't react. And that is huge.
An Iraqi combat vet was in the supermarket, and he had a PTSD diagnosis and had been taking mindfulness MBSR series, and was busy, and 5 p.m. and the carts are coming from unexpected places, and he's getting more and more anxious. He's finally in line to check out, 3 people in line, and the woman at the checkout line is only getting 1 item. And of course the story he starts telling himself, she's in the wrong place, why is it taking so long? She has a baby, she's talking to the checker, it goes on, and he's getting more and more anxious, and it's all he can do just to stay there, just to breathe and track his breath. Then she hands the baby over to the checker, and the checker's bouncing the baby. He finally gets up there, and instead of yelling at the checker, he says to her, "Cute baby." She says, "Oh, you think so? Thanks, that's my son. You know, my husband was killed in Iraq last year, and I've had to go back to work to support our family. And, you know, my mom just brings him in here just a couple of times a day, and, you know, she just buys one thing, just so I get to see my son." The ability to observe the sensations in the body and the thoughts going through the mind helps vets to find their way back to being at peace inside their body again. There's an emerging body of evidence that is expanding every day rapidly, and mindfulness modalities for health. In my mind, though, it makes sense to think of them in 3 general areas. The first kind of column of this is mood symptoms like depression and anxiety. The research is indicating that the effect size for mindfulness for symptom reduction is in the average medium to large range. This is fantastic news.
I don't look sad. I used to have some issues regarding depression, anxiety, and I feel that I have a smile more than I used to.
The second kind of column for me of research is the physiological or sort of the biological measures. So looking at mindfulness and seeing what's happening in the body, not just in things like cortisol and stress hormone reduction. But now we're getting into new realms showing very exciting works in epigenetics. In just 6 to 8 weeks, as many as 60 genes that regulate inflammatory processes in the body were being turned on or off in the appropriate direction. So when people have aches and pains and tiredness and fatigue, that we're teaching a behavioral approach that can have epigenetic implications in how their genome is being expressed, and this has profound implications in their own health care. Also in column 2, some of the evidence that connects mindfulness to biomarker changes in the body. It has to do with mindfulness impacting cellular aging. And how they're looking at this is through the examination of telomeres.
So at the end of each chromosome, there are telomeres. You can imagine it like the little caps at the end of the shoelaces, and they get shorter over time, but they get also shorter with stress.
And there's evidence that's preliminary, but still very fascinating, to suggest that a mindfulness practice can help change the path of cellular aging. The third kind of research domain is this idea of neuroplasticity, that as the brain fires, it wires. We're teaching practices, not just for attention, but for compassion and kindness, that can help rewire the brain in as little as 8 weeks. We can see through brain imaging differences in people's subcortical structures and how the neural pathways connect. This has long-term implications for things like mood regulation. Also, veterans coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan with traumatic brain injury and intractable post-traumatic headache. We're exploring to see if meditation can not only provide them some felt relief with their chronic pain, with their headache, but doing some pre and post brain images to see if we're able to alter this intractable post-traumatic headache with a meditation intervention. We're at an interesting time in healthcare delivery, I think in the country, but certainly at the VA. In a very important way, we're shifting the locus of control from the healthcare provider in a white coat into the veteran. We are teaching veterans to handle the day-to-day issues that come up in their lives. They're taking these tools and using it every day in their lives.
The foundational practice of spirit and soul is mindful awareness. Mindful awareness opens the way to the adventure of whole health. It's time to explore the adventure of your life. The elegance of spirit and soul is that it welcomes the insight and collaboration of institutional religion through the full variety of authentic religious traditions. However, it does not require participation in organized religion. Too often religious traditions are discounted, however, and kicked to the curb. In fact, they provide insight and support that can be helpful to whole health. So, Whole Health Core is a spiritual program, and it can be religious if that is helpful to the individual members of the Whole Health Core. So let's close this video with a meditation, a breathing meditation from Diana Winston. She is the Director of Mindfulness Education at UCLA Semel Institute's Mindful Awareness Research Center, MARC. Diana Winston.
So find a relaxed, comfortable position, seated on a chair or on the floor, on a cushion. Keep your back upright, but not too tight. Hands resting wherever they're comfortable. Tongue on the roof of your mouth or wherever it's comfortable. And you can notice your body from the inside, noticing the shape of your body, the weight, touch. And let yourself relax and become curious about your body. Seated here, the sensations of your body, the touch, the connection with the floor or the chair. Relax any areas of tightness or tension. Just breathe, soften. And now begin to tune into your breath in your body, feeling the natural flow of breath. Don't need to do anything to your breath. Not long, not short, just natural. And notice where you feel your breath in your body. It might be in your abdomen. It may be in your chest or throat or in your nostrils. See if you can feel the sensations of breath, one breath at a time. When one breath ends, the next breath begins. Now, as you do this, you might notice that your mind may start to wander. You might start thinking about other things. If this happens, this is not a problem. It's very natural. Just notice that your mind has wandered. You can say thinking or wandering in your head softly. And then gently redirect your attention right back to the breathing. So we'll stay with this for some time in silence, just a short time. Noticing our breath, from time to time getting lost in thought and returning to our breath. See if you can be really kind to yourself in the process. And once again, you can notice your body, your whole body seated here. Let yourself relax even more deeply. And then offer yourself some appreciation for doing this practice today. Whatever that means to you. Finding a sense of ease and well-being for yourself in this day.